Well, hey, Holy Business. Today I'm bringing you a little bit of a longer conversation, but my guest is Mark Krancer of Kram Kran Photo. He used to be based in Jacksonville. He's now in North Carolina. And his story starts with drug addiction and really a network, a business, if you will, of drugs, and turns into just a beautiful relationship with landscape photography and just realizing God's beauty on a bike ride to work, starting with a cell phone and turning it into the business he has today, Kram Kran Photo. He shoots everything from landscapes to corporate events, and he is renowned for his work. His story is amazing. He'll encourage you to keep renewing your mind, keep pushing forward, and leverage everything you've learned from any situation for the next steps in your life. So don't miss today's episode with Mark Krancer. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your story. I've been excited to talk to you personally because my family loves your work, and you were able to uniquely minister to someone I care about deeply. And I don't even think you knew you were doing it at the time, which is the coolest way God uses people.
Absolutely.
But thank you for being here. Thank you for your willingness to share your story. Tell me about what you do. Tell everybody listening about what your job looks like today. What do you do for a living?
Sure. So my name's Mark Krancer. I'm a photographer. I am a small business owner. My company is called Kram Kran Photo, which is my first name backwards, and then the first four letters of my last name.
That took me a minute, by the way, to figure that out. I was like, where'd that come from? And I was like, oh, be smarter, Candice.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out, because some people, just don't. And I have to break it down, and they still don't get it, which is okay. But when someone gets it before I tell them, I'm like, you're my people.
No, I love it. I love it.
But yeah, so I just wanted something different. I want to think that I look at the world a little bit differently. So I didn't want Mark Krancer photography, capturing through the lens photography. That's fine for other people, but I just wanted to be a little different.
If you want to know something funny, a company I started in 2005 was my middle name backwards. So I think that's how I got there.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's your turn now. Go ahead. So tell us a little bit about what you do with Kram Kran.
So I have been a full-time photographer since 2018. I do a little bit of everything. My quote is, I pretty much do everything except the cutesy wootsy bundled up baby photos. But that started to change a little bit once I had my little baby.
You melted your heart now, and you've got to do them.
Oh yeah, but I still stay in my lane for professional.
Okay, gotcha.
But so I teach photography. I've been a brand ambassador for Guy Harvey Outposts for 5 years, teaching academies throughout Florida. I do a little bit of everything. It keeps things interesting. I do landscapes, cityscapes. That's kind of one of my big passions. I love history. I love telling the stories of historic preservation, the buildings. I got involved with a really cool project a couple years ago where I got to go to 52 different communities in Florida and basically photograph them all like I was a tourist, essentially.
Oh, wow.
Just photographing the culturally significant places, little local businesses, stuff that their local Main Street community wanted to focus on for marketing. Or just have cohesive marketing throughout the state. So, I mean, like, that's the sort of stuff I love. But I do historic work, headshots, food photography. Food photography is a big one. Probably shot about 2,500 different restaurants over the years.
Do you get to eat the food while you're shooting it? Because I feel like you should negotiate that into the contract.
Yeah, it hasn't been kind to my waistline. It has not been kind to my waistline, but yep. So I'll go to a place, and I shoot for a lot of different organizations within the food industry. A lot of them are like delivery services and stuff. But
okay.
So one of their things is if they have photos, like good quality photos of the food, they get, I think it's something like 70 to 100% more sales of that item. So they'll pay for me up front to go to these local restaurants. So it's not a charge to the restaurant per se, except for their time and food.
Yeah.
And of course I do work with restaurants directly, but I can do anything from 5 items in the restaurant for their menu to up to their entire menu. And you have no idea how large some of the menus are at these places. So I'll have 60, 70 items of food like sprawled out throughout an entire restaurant, and they're like, okay, what are we going to do with the food? So that's one of the interesting challenges that comes with my life. I do a lot of event photography, so I cover events. We'll get into this a little later, but one of the full circle moments. I love full circle moments in my life.
Sure.
But one of those full circle moments is I've been the official photographer for ASAM, which is the American Society of Addiction Medicine, for the last 4 years. So they get me out to their conference every year across the nation, and I cover that for them and get to learn a little bit more about addiction and medicine and how they're approaching that. So that's kind of cool for me. But marketing campaigns, I do a little bit of everything. But my real passion's landscapes, cityscapes, and history.
Well, that makes sense because the thing that kicked it all off was that kind of photography.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, your story of how everything got going is one of my favorites with that photo. It's just crazy. So tell us a little bit about it, because it's that photo oddly came to mean a lot to my family, and it obviously meant a lot to you in the end. So share a little about it.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, people want to hear about that photo, but so much cooler of that part of the story is backing up and telling the progression of what happened before that day.
Yes.
And then how, again, a full circle moment, and changed my life. So I grew up in Texas, so that okay. You might hear a little bit of an accent.
Not at all. Didn't catch one at all.
Well, some people are like, I know you're from the South, but you're not from here. Where are you from? I moved. So I had an issue with addiction from a fairly early age, as a teenager, early teen, like preteen, basically.
Yeah. How did that start?
And one bad decision at a time. I heard an interesting thing someone said once about transition ministry and addiction ministry and all that. He said Jesus, Satan doesn't bind us. It doesn't bind us all in chains all at once. You don't normally wake up one day and say, you know what, today's the day I'm going to do heroin. That for most people, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but for most people, that's not the case. Fortunately, Jesus can break those chains.
Sure.
And he did in my life. But, Satan comes at us and normally binds us one link at a time. And in my life, I see that with one small decision made after another. You know, it started with the friends I kept, what I did with those friends, and from, you know, stealing booze out of my parents' cabinet, to stealing their cigarettes, you know, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it all just added up to eventually, you know, I had a $500 a day habit.
Wow.
You know, so I grew up in Texas, and I didn't have that crazy habit, you know, as a teenager for the most part. But I moved to Central Florida in when I was 20, or excuse me, 19.
Okay.
And my mom had moved out there. I had been kicked out of the college I was at for drugs and all that sort of stuff. And I was with her at the house. We were involved in a car accident on I-95 about a year after. And she was killed right in front of me. And, you know, that after that sent me on a downward spiral. I already had the foundation laid for trouble. You know, I mean, I had been actively selling drugs at that point for at least 6 years. You know, so I already had the foundation laid, but once she died and I watched her die, I'm an only child. My dad at the time, he worked in Siberia. So, I mean, like, it was pretty much just me. Okay. And I don't use that as a crutch, but, you know, I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. Like, I had no foundation other than the foundation built on sand that I had laid of drugs and that lifestyle. So I kind of went full force into it. You know, got to the point where I would sell a quarter kilo of cocaine in a day sometimes. You know, and that was my life. And everybody I knew was in that lifestyle. I tried to get clean. Numerous times, and I just couldn't do it.
How many years were you in that lifestyle so engulfed?
Total about 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a year and a half that I got a full-time job, and I was sober, and I was doing things. I've been caught with cocaine, went through drug court, and I think at that time I had my second DUI. And so I went through all that drug court, and I followed the course and all that, and I stayed clean. However, I still had a foundation of friends, associates that were very active in that lifestyle. Okay. A certain, and one of them was my roommate. A certain set of circumstances happened to him that were very unfortunate. I'm not going to share too much about his story, but it was tragic.
No, yeah, that's somebody else's
story. It was totally tragic. It started back as a necessity in my mind, like, okay, we got to pay this rent so that we don't get kicked out.
And that's what you knew.
Yeah. And he couldn't do it at that point because he was just so lost in this tragedy that had happened. And I mean, it directly affected me too, but obviously much more him. So I made a decision. You know, I said, you know what, to pay this, I'll sell for you. and I'll do what I can to get these bills paid. So
Okay.
it started as that. That was probably 2006,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
In Florida, as I'm sure most people will know, at that time, Oxycodone was just taking over. Of course, it went all up the East Coast, but
Yeah.
in Central Florida and South Florida, it really started to just consume people, and it still
Okay.
does. So it consumed me. I went to a doctor. I mean, I had some herniated discs or bulging discs from my car accident with my mom, and I use that as a way to get these drugs. And at first, I wouldn't take them or anything, but then certain circumstances arise. I had to pass or fail a drug test in order to get them. So I had to take them. And it's like, okay, well, all this, for me, it was always wrapped up. The drugs were wrapped up with the money, like in my mind, I could never separate them.
Gotcha.
But at that point, Oxycodone really kind of took full force in Central Florida and South Florida, and everybody I knew at that point was doing it, going to multiple doctors, all that sort of stuff. So I got into what you'd call doctor shopping, and
that was a big thing. Yeah.
Taking. Oh yeah. I would sponsor vans going down to South Florida and all that.
Oh my gosh.
Support my addiction. I mean, it's crazy just how shady some of that stuff was. I mean, like, you could go to a strip club and you could wait in the strip club, and there was an MRI clinic behind the strip club, and you could wait in there up to 24 hours before they'd call you. But you would just wait in the strip club, and then they would give you a MRI. And then you could go to any doctor.
Oh my gosh.
It was a total scam.
I mean, you had a full network built out.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're using your entrepreneurial talents for good instead of evil now.
Absolutely.
So one thing I didn't. Go ahead.
One thing I didn't mention is my entrepreneurial spirit kind of started. I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, and in the Houston area, I would win these giant trophies bigger than me for top salesman. I see it. So it just kind of rolled into another thing and another. But so I was fueling my habit, and at times I could do up to 30 milligram oxycodone a day.
Wow.
So that's 900 milligrams of oxycodone. And that would kill most people, but I had a tolerance. I did try to kill myself once with taking 50 at once. Both me and my girlfriend at the time, we did that, and we both woke up with headaches later that day.
God was not done. He was not done with you.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
So was that your breaking point, or did it take more?
No, I was miserable, totally miserable in that life. I did try to kill myself a few times in various methods. There is a history of that in the family going back. But that wasn't my breaking point. So I had another girlfriend later that took me to Calvary Chapel. And I was, at that point, I was totally lost and hopeless in in this life, but I was miserable. Like I had tried and tried on my own to change, and I just couldn't. Like in my network and everything, I couldn't.
Yeah.
But God, but God. So the invitation at the end of that chapel, I hadn't been in a church in 10 years. And even when I was in church, growing up, it was just a thing I did. I didn't have Jesus in my heart. And, I knew I was powerless in my addiction, and I gave it to God. I said, Jesus, break these chains of addiction in my life. Lord, help me, because I can't do this, Lord. I give it to you. And, guess what? No, I walked out of there, and I was still an addict.
Yeah.
Oh, my life didn't change overnight in that way. But God, in his time. So, over the course of this time, I had managed to accumulate a couple more DUIs. And not once I got saved, but beforehand. And I was on probation for that. And so I had ended up selling to an undercover cop a couple months before, and had not realized that they were still building a case and all that. And about 3 months later, I was doing community service for my probation, and I got arrested. They raided the place and got me. And when at the time, I was still a struggling addict. I mean, I had cut back a lot but I was still struggling.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what they were there for. And when I read, so I asked, what are my charges? And they finally read me the charges: sale of Oxycodone. And I knew I had violated probation, and I had no idea how long I was going away for. But I said, at least this is my opportunity to get clean. No matter what, this is my opportunity to get clean.
Yeah.
I had never gone to like a 30-day rehab or one of these like luxury rehab places, but this God used that time, separated from all those influences I knew, separated from all that. And guess what? You can get that in jail, you can get that in prison, you can get all that stuff. But he had sown the seeds and then started to lay that foundation for me to build back my life in his image. You know.
So you chose that as kind of your detox.
Absolutely. September 27th, 2012. Yep.
Wow. Congratulations.
So, thank you. So praise Jesus, over 13 years clean and sober now.
Wow.
So
how long were you in prison for?
Well, they were at one point offering me 30 years. I kept going through, they throw out these crazy deals hoping you'll take them. And I just kind of kept biding my time. And eventually got down to 18 months.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So signed on it and I went to prison. So, that was a whole experience. And, sure, there's lots of stories of that time and all that. But the things I would really want to focus on during that time is I met the first of a group I would call the Godly Steves. There's a group of 5 or 6 Steves that have been huge godly influences in my life.
That's amazing. The Godly Steves. I love it.
So
I love when God has a sense of humor and is like, I'm going to make sure you know to pay attention. So I'll give him the same name and make it easy.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
So, Steve encouraged me to start going to chapel, and,
Okay.
I had done some Bible studies and stuff, but I hadn't really taken it seriously at that point.
Okay.
And let me just say, the whole detox from Oxycodone and all that, like I didn't sleep right for 6 months.
Wow.
Like off that stuff, because it's a vicious cycle. Like, and it's not just like a week or two you'll be better when you're at that level of addiction. No, it took 6 months to truly feel normal for the first time in my life since I was
I think
12.
that's important you share that, because it is a prescription medication that is so widely misused.
Oh yeah.
So I appreciate you talking about that, because that's one that infiltrates a lot of houses that seem normal from the outside.
Oxycodone, Xanax, and Somas. That was like the trinity, so to speak, of that.
Yeah.
That thing.
Yeah. So what did Steve teach you? He got you in chapel.
Steve, yeah, I've been to a lot of different churches and all that, and since then, but there's nothing quite as beautiful in my mind as a prison chapel.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, there's no sense of pretension among certain people. There's no one there truly with an agenda, so to speak. I mean, sure, some people might have various reasons for being there. I mean, okay, but you see true beauty of God working in those men's lives, and they are there to worship Him. Yeah, from behind the walls of a prison. Some of them might never get out. And
no, that's true.
And but they've been set free.
That's so good.
So Steve, you can't tell it now, but Steve also helped get me into physical fitness, and also he was very focused on what are you going to do after prison, and so I made this whole book of basically papers. I called them the Quincy papers because I was at Quincy prison. And and there were all sorts of things of what I was going to do. And I had like business plans. I had music I wanted to listen to, places I wanted to visit. So
you started
all sorts of different
into
goals.
vision, the future.
Yeah. Starting life over. What does that look like? So use this time as best as you can. So Steve got out a few months before me, and right around that same time, I got transferred to Jacksonville.
Okay.
Quincy was in the Florida Panhandle. Jacksonville was always one of those places. Before I knew anything about it, I would describe as the armpit of Florida, because I, in my mind, Central Florida and South Florida was where it's at. Right.
Well, to be clear, you knew my cousin. He loved posting only in Duval, which is about Jacksonville and all the crazy Florida man things that happen there. So he would not disagree with you either. But continue. So you ended up in Jacksonville. Yeah. Did you get released while you were in Jacksonville?
Yes.
Okay.
So I went to this. It was a work release program. However, they had just started a new therapeutic community, and it was for drug offenders and stuff like that. And I say quotes. I don't mean like that's just what they called it, but it was a good time for me to grow more in that foundation. So they had different classes in there, and of course some of it's like AA, NA, and all that, which is very important, I feel, to start laying that foundation. But then they also had guys come in from Prisoners of Christ ministry.
Okay.
So Prisoners of Christ ministry is a local Jacksonville-based ministry that focuses on transition for men. There's a similar program for women, but POC, Prisoners of Christ, they deal specifically with men. So they would come into the jail or the prison and share Sunday mornings with us. Would teach different classes, and I started learning about their program, and I applied for it, and I was accepted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I didn't have it in my mind that Jacksonville was going to be the place I was going to end up. I had all sorts of other places, but one of the things we don't think about when we talk about prison transition. So like in my example, I wanted to start life new, and I needed a geographical change. I had a change of heart.
To get away from community.
Yeah, I had a change of heart, but I did not want to go back to those same streets where I knew I had done a drug deal at that Quickie Mart or whatever, or done a deal in this parking lot. I didn't want to go back to that. I didn't want to run into the same people and all that. So, Jacksonville it is. I had only driven through Jacksonville once.
Can I ask you a question about that really quick? Because
sure.
I think people find that idea in a lot of cases, whether it's addiction or whatever it is, that they would have to change physical location or change community. It can feel wrong when they're trying to make a change in their life. Why was that so important to you? You just verbalized how you didn't want to see those spaces again, but that's also hard to do. And a lot of people aren't able to escape some sort of bad situation because of that. So how was it hard for you? And obviously there's fruit from making the tough decision. What would you say to someone who's struggling with that?
It can be challenging to be truthful with yourself and know what you need. Like a lot of people will, go back to family who might have an addictive personality, might still be in the same habits. Oh, I can do this I can be clean and they can still do their stuff. Doesn't work. Like in my experience, it doesn't work. I'm sure there's people that do.
Well, I think that's good to hear you say it. Sorry, go ahead.
You have to be honest with yourself. Like if you can't see what your trip ups would be, like, I mean, for me, like I can, as an event photographer, I'm around alcohol constantly.
That's
I'm
true.
around food. I'm around food where they want to sell booze and stuff. I'm around that constantly. And for me, that's a spot that's mentally okay for me, but I will never have alcohol in our home. Like for a guest or for a party or whatever, not going to happen.
Right.
And fortunately, my wife doesn't drink, never really had a problem with that. So I'm grateful for that.
It's important to choose people that are willing to go on the journey with you. So
yeah, absolutely. And back to your question of you have to find those people that are willing to go on that journey with you. And if you're in a vulnerable state, like you have to be honest with yourself and okay, is this person, whether that's your own parents or a sibling or what, are they good for me in this season of life?
I'm excited you say that, because I think scripturally that's very sound teaching, but we don't always do a great job, especially when it comes to family, of saying there has to be boundaries, because it's easy for people to make you feel like that's wrong or that's bad. But there's nothing wrong with healthy boundaries to protect your lifestyle and your choices, no matter who it is. So I really appreciate you saying that. So you went back to serve, and give back. And you're in Jacksonville at this point.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
let me just say one other thing about Prisoners of Christ. What differentiated them during that time was there had been like a transition fair where, different organizations would, like halfway houses and stuff would come. And, I would talk to them and it's like, okay, you want me to pay rent 2 weeks after I get out? I'm a freshly convicted felon. I don't know anybody in Jacksonville, but I want this fresh start. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I can do that.
That's wild to think about.
Yeah. And that's kind of the standard thing, like that's the industry standard, so to speak. But Prisoners of Christ, that they show you God's grace. Not only do they help you get back on your feet, help you with basic services, transportation if you need it, but they don't make you pay rent until you have a job, which they'll usually help you get.
That's really cool. So they really focus on the physical needs first.
Absolutely. And spiritual needs. Absolutely. Yeah. And then, you have accountability. Like when you're first out, that's you're constantly around people to try to keep you from straying. I mean, don't get me wrong. Recidivism happens. It happens all the time. People fail a program. It's a hard thing, but if you work that program, like you'll have a strong foundation for the rest of your life. So, I got out Jacksonville and I had been a GED tutor inside, and a fellow GED tutor who's local to Jacksonville told me about this place called Riverside.
Okay.
And you see, it's kind of starting to finally 30 minutes later get back around. Okay. So he told me about this place called Riverside. And he drew me a little map. He didn't have Google in there or anything. So he drew me a map of exactly where the neighborhood is. And my dad came from Texas and picked me up from prison the day I got out, January 5th, 2014. And it took a little while before I could go into Prisoners of Christ. So he took me down to this neighborhood called Riverside, which wasn't far away. Lots of historic buildings, nothing like I'd ever seen in Houston. Houston doesn't believe in that sort of stuff. But,
that's actually true. No offense, Houston. If you're listening, Houston.
And to be fair, Central Florida, where I wasn't really like that either. But I was intrigued by the historic preservation. But also we drove past this place called Memorial Park. And as we're driving by Memorial Park, I look at this sculpture and I started thinking, I'd love to live here one day. Love to live here one day. And it just spoke to me. So, I started going back into the prisons and sharing my testimony over time and, eventually throughout this process and encouraging others along their way. But I was, still on a bicycle. I definitely had some tough, dark moments in those early months where, transition didn't look like this clean, straight line. Right. I thought I had a job, and at the last moment it got pulled from me because of my past, even though I'd been upfront with them. At the time I was biking across Jacksonville to donate plasma, and that was the only way I was getting any sort of money.
And Jacksonville is a very spread out geographic city. It's massive.
The largest landmass city in the lower 48. Yep. They love to claim that. But I was going over the bridges and all that just to donate plasma for $50 a week. I remember at one point it was a very tough decision for me to realize I had to get nail clippers, like just basic hygiene.
Yeah, things you needed.
Yeah. But you know, that same day I got the notification that I wasn't getting that job. I had someone from my past reach out to me wanting to see if I could middleman something from, you know, back in Central Florida.
The temptation of that.
Yeah. So I was like, no, like, and praise God, I said no, but you know, it's a series of choices.
Wow.
You know, at one point I had, pain pills in my hand when we were cleaning out a room at a ministry house that they had just purchased. And, you know, praise God that had the opportunity to give that, to have the strength to give that to my room leader, my house leader, and he flushed them, you know. And my daily devotional that day was 1 Corinthians 10:13, you know, talking about overcoming temptation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Imagine if you hadn't read that, though, the pressure. The pressure anyway, but wow.
So after about 6 months, now during that time, Prisoners of Christ had got me a job at the local newspaper, the Florida Times-Union. And
what were you doing there?
So I was doing production. Basically, when the newspaper printed each night, we would bundle it all up and get it ready for distribution.
Gotcha.
And this goes to like inserts. You know, and there's thousands of different things going on from the papers. So
kind of like an entry-level steady job.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. You know, I was so thankful for that opportunity to do right. And I excelled at my job, and I eventually got promoted. Then a few months got promoted. So I became the the team lead of the shipping department. So that went from a night job to a day job. Well, so by this point I had moved out of Prisoners of Christ housing, and I had got my own place in Riverside with that guy who had drawn me the map.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I had to be at work by 7 a.m. And if I was a minute late, I'd get rode up. And now at the time I was pretty fast on a bicycle, and I could get from my house to downtown Jacksonville at the Times-Union in about 7 minutes. But getting there at 7, I was catching sunrise 10 months out of the year, some form of it. And I was right along the Riverwalk. So for those who are unfamiliar with Jacksonville, the Riverwalk, St. John's River goes right through Jacksonville.
It's beautiful.
And there's miles of pedestrian walkways and stuff along the river. So I would catch sunrise there, and I started taking photos with my cell phone. See where this is going?
I do.
And I started sharing them with people at Times-Union and all that. Not necessarily so many of the photographers, but one of my friends who was kind of creative, and he blessed me with a camera. He blessed me with a camera, and I started taking photos on my DSLR camera and learning the principles of photography right during that time. I mean, I was also going to school. I started going to school for getting my bachelor's in logistics and all that. But I had no idea where anything was leading. I just knew I needed to pursue this path. And, you know, year and a half after I got out, I'd been discipled by another godly Steve, Pastor Steve Clifton at First Baptist, and
Cool.
his wife was running the Passion Play, so it's like the big Easter production.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's a huge thing at this church. I mean, you start practicing in late January for Easter weekend. And I was going to school full time. I was working full time.
You're still biking everywhere.
Biking everywhere. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
And you know, Steve would say that it was a great display of faith that I would show up all sweaty on a bicycle to Sunday morning. But that's just a side note. But his wife said they really needed people in the Passion Play.
Okay.
And I was like, no, I just got so much going on. They really needed men. And I was like, no, I got a lot going on. She's like, you never know. You might meet your future wife.
Well, side note before we progress, men, that's true for every church. So if you're a dude listening, you better be serving somewhere. But continue, Mark.
So I got cast as Simon the Zealot, and
nice.
You know, I did all the 3 times, 5 times a week, the rehearsals and all that. Well, and I met my wife in the most manly of ways possible. She did my stage makeup. Yeah, she did my stage makeup for 3 of the 4 performances. And
I love so much that this was your pastor's wife's selling point. She nailed it. Holy Spirit had her back on it. If there's no other motivation, men, you heard that right. Especially if you're single and listening. You never know what God will do.
Amen.
Did you have amazing makeup?
I'm no makeup expert. I'd have
you
to get her on
yes.
podcast, but yes, I think it was phenomenal.
Yes, that was a good answer.
It's still a learning process, you know.
Right. I got your back.
Thank you. But yeah. So our first date was in Memorial Park. I had no money. I said, hey, bring some coffee. There was a Starbucks right across the street.
Right.
And I said, bring some coffee. I'll bring the park. And
that's so cute. You laid it off. Good job.
I praise God. She fell for this recently released felon who had changed his life, and we might not have had much, but we found each other, and praise God for that. Our first date was in the park. Then we, fast forward a few years, we had set our wedding date as October 20th.
Okay.
And this was October 20th, 2017.
Okay.
And we had already decided we wanted our reveal in the park. Okay. And because it meant so much to us.
So much.
And during this time, I was still working. I had gone to school. Like, one of our things was she was in school full time and I was too. One of our things was, okay, at least one of us needs to get out of school, like, before we get married. So, like, we have the time and all that.
Yeah.
So I was set to graduate first. So hold on, just stop here a sec.
You're fine.
So I was set to graduate, and golly, where was my train of thought going with that?
We are about to do your first look at Memorial Park.
Ah, yes. Well, I guess I should probably back up a bit. Sorry, I might have jumped ahead a little bit there. But so okay, Memorial Park. Our reveal was set for that park, and this was all planned. I wanted to graduate. And then during that time, I had started selling photography.
Okay.
With a DSLR.
With the DSLR. Okay.
Yep, I started sharing stuff on Facebook. I sold some canvases here. It's something I really love doing. I went to local art shows. Art Walk, Riverside Arts Market, stuff like that, and was getting some good traction.
Okay.
But I was still not seeing the sort of dollars I could see to support a family. Off.
This is a nice little side gig.
Yeah, and it's something I love. It's something I love. So
cool.
that's awesome. I'm gonna keep doing it. But then Hurricane Irma came.
Okay.
Hurricane Irma came, and I was fully prepared to hunker down. Because that's what the weatherman says to do, hunker down.
Yeah.
And I got a book about photography, and I was reading it at my place in Riverside, and the pastor, my pastor Steve Clifton, he reached out. He texted eventually. He's like, "Hey, are you okay? I see Memorial Park is flooded." I think he said something like, "There's 4 feet of water at Memorial Park."
Wow.
And I said, "I'm going to go take pictures."
I got to see this.
So I lived probably a mile away. By this time, I had got my car back. I had a breathalyzer and all that, but I had my car. And I got in my car, drove down to kind of some of the higher ground there, and I ran into a guy who was one of my patrons from art markets and stuff. And him and his buddy were on a bicycle. And they ended up going to the base of the sculpture in Memorial Park. And I got these photos of them where you can just barely see their handlebars.
Okay.
And that photo ended up going to National Geographic eventually. But in the park that day, I saw. Well, I kept taking photos. I probably took about 300 photos. And that one particular photo, the one where the wave is at the base of the sculpture's feet, when I looked at the photos later on that day, that I knew that was like the one. I mean, I had no idea what that meant at that time, but that was the photo.
Yeah, we're going to throw it up right now, too.
Yeah. I mean, I had all sorts of adventures that day. I had gone down to the Times Union and the River Walk and all that. But, I had been over waist deep in the water. So I was trying to get photos when I was about, like the water went through the entire park. And if you got a photo of Memorial Park, it's this big green space. So the water was pretty much to the far end of it. And at first I was about ankle deep. Then I got knee deep. Wasn't getting the photo I wanted. I didn't have a big long lens like, maybe some of the newspaper photographers.
Yeah, you didn't have the equipment to be like on a hill far away shooting that. So you had to get into it.
So I had to get up close and personal. And eventually I made the decision. I took the plunge to get over waist deep in the water. Got up to about my belly button. I mean, I'm 6 foot, and my pants were wet, so I had my keys dangling from my mouth. and I had my cell phone in this hand as I'm adjusting the DSLR camera lens, just trying to keep everything dry. And I'm like running into, I'm seeing like power lines down over here, and like I see branches in the water and who knows what else. But anytime I would touch anything, I'd kind of freak out in the water. But eventually I got to that spot where I took that photo. And like I said, it was about 1 out of 300 photos. That was just right.
So what did you do with the photo?
So
when you feel like you get the one, what do you do with it?
Well, I shared it as much as possible.
Okay. So social media?
Yep. So social media, okay. I shared it, I don't know, probably 9 different groups, and it was getting a lot of traction. But the key moment in that is when Jason, he shared it. And, I don't necessarily know Jason as being like some big influencer or anything like that. But what he did different was he used hashtags. Hashtags came around when I was in prison. Like I've never understood them. Like I was like, oh, okay, cool. But maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But his one post got almost 3,000 shares. And, at that point, it really started going places. Yeah. And I knew this was a special photo. I was on the hospital grid, so I never lost power. But I think one of the things that kind of helped it so much was most of the city was without power. So they couldn't watch the local media for the most part. What were they doing? They were scrolling their phones. And they'd see that photo and share it. But that
Where did
photo,
it go from there?
It went to multiple media outlets. People like to say it went to New York Times. No, it was another photographer's thing. I went to New York Times. And that's okay. That is okay. I'm not hating that. But it went a lot of different places on social media, got printed in a lot of different local publications, was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. Didn't win, but considering my life and the full circle moment of, that sculpture, it was made about 100 years ago, and the sculptor's intent was a triumph of the human spirit. So he's talking like if you look at it, there's a globe at the bottom, and this figure is rising out of it, the chaos of greed and strife and existence, and he's rising above that chaos to a brighter day. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's the gist of it.
I think we can see from your story why that might be so personally connected for you, and
absolutely.
How that became your full circle moment. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
What did it feel like to get nominated for a Pulitzer? From your side gig of photography in Jacksonville.
I was still working. By this point, I had kind of rose through the ranks some more, and I'd gone to, I'd done the layout of the paper for a while. I mean, this is over a 4-year period, basically. And by that point, I was in advertising. I was an associate for advertising, and I was just sitting there in my cubicle, seeing if I want a Pulitzer Prize. I mean,
just a normal day
and everything. Didn't happen, and that's okay. But like, it's just crazy what life can do if you let it. If you let God, one of the things with me is like, my finite mind cannot comprehend an infinite God and his plans for my life. And that's one of those things where I just have to let go and let God and trust God.
So, you mentioned
to that point,
Go ahead.
To that point, there is one story I wanted to share, in Riverside. So there was my roommate who had done, who had made the map and all that. He ended up relapsing while I was working nights, and he ended up disappearing in the middle of the night, and he also took my rent money.
Oh gosh.
And so all of a sudden, like, I had this basically minimum wage job at that point, and I felt hopeless as far as, like, immediately in my mind what I could do to not get evicted. I mean, there was some times I was seriously, thinking I might be homeless. That wasn't the only time. I mean, one of the things was, I found a mattress. I was sleeping on hardwood floors, and I found a mattress in the trash, and I dragged it home because, I could have a mattress to sleep on. And I was thankful for that. So be thankful for what you have. But what I was getting at with him, guess what? I did not get evicted. God found ways to work on people's hearts to help me. But my verse of the day was Philippians 4, verse 6 to 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus.
Amen.
Let go and let God.
Let God.
So
So every time you thought it was hopeless, you got the lifeline you needed.
Absolutely. And
because someone listening right now feels that way.
Yeah. And, it's played out time and time again. Like, it can be a scary thing becoming your own business owner, going from a 9 to 5, and then, is this going to work out? Like, if emails aren't coming in and all that, how am I going to make this work? And I've learned to trust God through those slow times, because guess what? Like, if you have your heart focused on him and you work in those doors that he opens, like, God provides. And that looks differently for everybody. But
I love that you said that, because you've been through real anxiety producing times and real insecure times. And as a business owner, sometimes it feels like the worst case scenario is always happening and you're always thinking about it. So to hear that from you, I hope someone is getting perspective right now on what it could be and what you fought through. Remember what you fought through to get this thing you have.
Absolutely.
Mark, we didn't talk about Jason, but I got to know you through Jason sharing that photo. That was my first experience meeting you, was Jason sharing this photo in Jacksonville, and me actually DMing with him and going, "That's not a real photo." And he's going, "Yes, it's a real photo." And I'm going, "It's AI." But it's a really beautiful photo. And then learning the story behind it, I got to hear Jason talk about the story. And Jason Braddock was my cousin. And this week, a year ago, he passed away. So to hear you and have you on is really a full circle moment for me, one. But your image and the things we do produce such an impact sometimes that we don't know. And your image produced beautiful conversations in my own family, and we didn't know each other. And you didn't even know Jason at the time. But likewise, his sharing of that image produced something new for you. And so I think that was an important part of the conversation I wanted to share today, is we never know the outcomes or the ripple effects of the investment we put in others, and just the things we do out of the goodness out of our hearts, or the ways we try to give back. but there's beautiful blessing when we allow God to do that. And I wanted to, thank you for how you tell your story, but also just putting yourself out there when the whole world, there's so many people that would have gotten through your situation and hidden away as much as they possibly could for the rest of their lives. And you didn't do that.
There's a lot of people like that. And, for one reason or another, they do it. Maybe I'm blessed that I don't work in the corporate world. I mean, yes, I have clients that are in that world, but they understand, they know I am like, if I share my story, if I share what God's done in my life, any bad, negative things of my old life, they lose their power.
Absolutely.
There might be somebody out there who, like, I mean, I've had people like, oh, he was a drug addict, he was a drug dealer. You know what? If that's what you see from me sharing my story, I don't want to be around you anyways. Like, and but like, everybody's story can touch someone differently. I can reach certain people, and you know what? That's why I double down on the addiction and the real struggles I went through in the trials, because I guarantee you somebody listening to this podcast, most people probably have, whether firsthand or someone in their family, they've experienced this in some way, shape, or form. And, one of the things I've heard over the years is it gives people hope for those that are still out there. They have to have their moment, their rock bottom, so to speak. But all we can do is share hope in Jesus.
You're very open about your story and what you went through, even the things you've done. And you just talked about your why, and it's beautiful that you look at it that way. What would you say to someone who's living bound up kind of in lies right now and not sure of how to get out or how to talk about it?
If you want true change in your life, you have to give it to God. You have to give it to him and let him work on it in your life. And that can be in certain ways of God opening doors in your life and then you having to be obedient to step through them. And that's not always an easy thing. I mean, in my first door, so to speak, was kind of shoved in me. I was going to prison. Yeah,
He made sure you got the memo.
And for some people it might be that, but God can use you in that time. You think he can?
Yeah.
But that, and just truly whatever it is, once you've asked God to break those chains in your life, be honest with yourself about what your temptations are and what you can and cannot do.
That's good.
It's okay. It's okay to realize you cannot do something if it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, no, that's really good feedback. I want to shift gears a little bit. There was one thing I wanted to ask about that I think I've seen people struggle with. That is, this photo took off. You got a lot of visibility from it. But how do you actually do something with that at that point? How do you turn that into a business? Because people have these moments and it's, seize it, like work now, reap while there's harvest. But what is it? How do you actually do that?
So I had laid the foundation without me even truly knowing. I had already made my business. In fact, my business will celebrate 9 years tomorrow.
Congrats.
Being fully incorporated and all that stuff. Thank you.
You're legit.
I had laid the foundation with the art walks and all that sort of thing. I happened to also be in the commercial printing division, and I could print prints of this photo that were quality and very economically good. So I could offer that print to anybody who wanted it. I mean, I had prints as low as $30. And you could own a wonderful photo. And there was so much traction online for the month after that. I mean, I was on TV numerous times, and people were gladly sharing that story. So, during that time and in the next 6 months to a year or so, I would hit every art market and I would sell those prints, and I would be amazed. Sometimes there would be lines of people. Something that isn't truly talked about, in society is that if you're a drug dealer or were a drug dealer, you have no marketable skills. Yes, I had to pay the price for what was illegal, but I learned networking. I learned things like supply, demand. And these don't necessarily equate into something you can put on a resume in a lot of ways, but they are skills nonetheless. And using that in a positive way, I could use the doors that God had opened to me at that time. And God opened a lot of doors.
The cool thing about what you just said is so many people will get stopped by what they don't have, the skills they don't have, the connections they don't have. But the truth is, you're saying no matter the situation you came from, there's pieces God taught you that you can use for your next chapter.
Oh, absolutely.
And you used every ounce of them.
Yeah. And, during that time, like, I knew that, yes, this photo is amazing. Yes, this photo is fabulous, but I can't stake the rest of my life on it. I can't stake a career on it, but it can lay a foundation. So what did I do? I mean, yes, I got married just over a month after that photo was taken.
It's wild.
Yes, I was working full time. And mind you, something else. So I was doing art exhibits at the airport and stuff. And we had been praying that some of those, and this was before the Irma photo, but we had been praying that some of those prints would sell so that, we could cover costs and stuff when we got married. And, sure, some of those did sell, but God had other plans in mind. And his plan was ultimately much better than just what I could conceive as a couple prints selling at the airport. But, back to how to make that a sustainable business. So it opened a lot of doors, but I invested in, I had been without for a number of years, so I got some creature comforts that were nice, but I invested into top level gear, and really used that opportunity to branch out. So I started with event photography. I started covering events for a local newspaper, and not the newspaper I worked at.
Kind of like a city paper kind of situation.
Yeah, like a hyper local thing. And started taking photos and kind of learned that whole process. And now I had another skill. Now I had something that was sustainable. And, sometimes people ask me, oh, you're a photographer. Do you do families or weddings? Like there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah. I think every photographer experiences that.
So I do weddings, but most of these events were more like corporate galas and stuff that happens every year. So I could have sustainable events I could more or less count on every year.
So,
And some of those early clients have been my clients from day one, and they still continue to be.
so you use skills you had, you seized the moment, and you hustled hard in the moment. And then you reinvested and diversified, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And then guess what? So I went full time as a photographer. Like I got my degree in logistics and supply chain management, and I was working in that field. I had left the paper and all that. But every moment that I had free, I was not seeing my family so much, and I was going to photo shoots. Yeah. And the photo shoots were doing really well, but like it was not sustainable. Right. And we prayed about it. And at the time I was part of this, it was called the Bold City Best. So like the best photographer of Jacksonville. I said, you know what, if I win that, we'll take that as a sign from God to go out on my own, go out on our own, you know? And, and I won that. And, you know, like I said, it's been scary at times, but I've never had a regret about doing that. Never had a regret about doing what I love for myself that can support my family. And I always looked at it this way, like, hey, look, if I can at least pay the bills and do what I love, then that's a blessing. You're good. Yeah. That's amazing. And even during COVID, you know, guess what? There's no events going on. And
definitely we're not.
I mean, even in Florida, you know, the events truly didn't pick up for a year and a half. But during that time, diversifying again, I knew that restaurants had to market themselves differently. And that's when I got into food photography.
Just keep pivoting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, at that time I could do up to 4 restaurants in a day. And that was kind of how I got through COVID, you know? And then guess what? When I got out of COVID and the events came back, that made me even more diversified and stronger overall. Like in the photography industry, they say, you got to have your niche. If you're going to be...
Yeah, I talked to so many that, to your point, just have kind of these like a couple of boxes or one box. So this is interesting. That was another thing when I looked at your work. You do shoot kind of in everything. And that's not what many do.
If you're going to be an underwater dog photographer, you be the best underwater dog photographer there is. and I'm like, okay.
No, sure. I appreciate you saying that. And that was something I was hoping we'd get to, because I have struggled with the perception these days that everybody has to be an expert and execute one thing. And I'm very much a generalist myself. In my consulting work, when I go into a business, I simply have fixer, I think, on my LinkedIn, because I don't know what we're going to be working on. I'm going to collect data and we're going to move into whatever space the problem is to get you where you need to be. But that's largely confusing to people right now, because sociologically, there's a lot of what you're talking about where this is the thing I do and the only thing I do. Oh, yeah. And I do it better than everybody else. But to your point, we've got to be able to pivot. So I appreciate you sharing that.
That's right. You know, and for instance, like if I was just a product photographer and AI has hit the scene, like, and AI's made product photography, you know, I might be out of business. I mean, you know, but being able to pivot is essential to me. As long as I keep doing what I love, you know, I know the things I don't love doing. I'm not crazy about editing video for someone else.
Okay.
I'll take video and that's fine. But like, that's not my strong suit. and I, again, have to be honest with myself. Like, I can't do everything. I can't be.
You take pictures of your baby, but not others.
That's right. That's right. Yep. That's right.
Got it. So do what you love and pivot in it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, what have we not talked about that you want to make sure you share if we've missed anything?
Oh gosh. I guess going along to the point of networking and connections and all that, I've used photography. And one of the other godly Steves was Pastor Steve McCoy, who was the pastor of Prisoners of Christ. Yeah, okay. I didn't mention that part, but funny. He looked at that photo. He was an amateur photographer, and he said Jesus is with you when you took that photo. And I mean, he's one of the ones who gave me a chance and showed me God's grace. But full circle moment, like, I'm proud not only of the work I've done with the American Society of Addiction Medicine as their photographer, but, I've made connections for, like, there's a local or a newspaper that goes into prisons and gives people essentially a sense of humanities, and it is it does have some spiritual aspects to it, but it's kind of also well-rounded for just people to enjoy and have some sense of normalcy in prison. But I got connected with them, and I've connected them with Prisoners of Christ, and I have used videography as an opportunity to tell the testimonies of men at Prisoners of Christ. Some extraordinarily powerful testimonies. I mean, guys who've had life in prison, and just God has used them in miraculous, mountain moving ways. I'm blessed to now be on the board at Prisoners of Christ. So getting out and getting your life together, but then giving back in the ways you can, and that looks different for everybody. But again, if God opens the door, who am I to not walk through that? And to know when it's Him opening the door and not just my will trying to force some door down.
That's so good. That's so good. So seek God in it. Let Him partner with you and step in. Get back in. I love that you serve in an area that you experience pain. What has that done for you in your healing?
Well, I mean, I still have pain in ways like, I just looked up the other day, another person from my past has died. I had 2 ex-fiancés during that time in my life, including the one that brought me to Calvary Chapel, and got me saved in the first place. They're both overdosed and died.
Gosh.
I'd say over 50% of people I knew from back then are dead. So, I mean, it's the cliche of like either dead or in prison, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
It is true. So there's that pain, but it also grounds me to be back in ministry, to be back in sharing my testimony, because it reminds me where I came from.
Absolutely.
And I don't go to like AA or anything like that. For me, the strength and grounding for me is by sharing what God's done in my life.
Absolutely.
And I don't need to necessarily go to a group and be reminded every day of this addiction. I know this addiction's real. And I, need to stay grounded in that and not get too proud of myself and full of myself and think I can bend a rule,
Right. No, that's good feedback, because I think in our areas of temptation, sometimes we feel like we're safe and completely done with it. And we always have to
I've
be
got
aware
this
of
now.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good, God. What are you talking about?
Uh-huh.
So we just keep plugging each day, Mark.
That's right.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story. And you have written a book about your journey.
That's right.
Tell everybody what it is. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes too. But
so my testimony book, which is available on Amazon, is his guidance through life's storms. Mark's journey from addiction, through addiction, and from selling pills to Prince.
I love it. And then you've got some books of your work as well, correct?
That's right. I do have a book. Let's see. I might have it. Yep, right here. So,
conveniently placed.
Hey, how about that? Photographic
I've seen
memory.
that book before.
Yep. So that is available on my website, and that's a collection of over the last 10 years. My travels, some Jacksonville stuff, some just stuff from like South Africa, some stuff from Ireland and all over the country. Kind of a collection of my landscapes and seascapes, which I keep very diversified.
So I have a tip about that. I think everybody should have a landscape photography book in their living room, because it is the most soothing. If you've had a stressful day, to like flip through that book right there, or any book of landscapes, it just calms you. So I'm a huge fan. I think everybody should get one. I'll just say that. Now, if someone wants to work with you, if they have an event, a corporate event, or if they're looking for a photographer for their organization, for work they have going on, where all do you work? Or do you go everywhere? And how can they reach you?
So I live in Franklin, North Carolina, which is in the mountains of Western North Carolina. I do travel across the country for work. I'll be in California for a conference in April. I was just in Richmond, Virginia the other month. So I cover conferences, especially large corporate conferences across the country. I work on coffee table books. But I'm open to traveling. I work primarily in the Southeast, from North Carolina and Tennessee down to Miami. Like that's kind of like my region, so to speak. With Jacksonville, of course, Jacksonville's a core of that. But that being said, if it makes sense, I love travel.
Killer.
You can just reach out on my website, kramkranphoto.com or kramkranphoto@gmail.com, and happy to talk about your needs.
Well, I'll drop that in the show notes. And Mark, again, thank you so much. It's a great story. Order his book. If you know anyone struggling, if you're walking through a journey, and it's not just substance abuse, just the idea that we can heal, renew our minds, and move on. God gives us that opportunity. We just have to choose it. So I really appreciate you sharing that today. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. And just fair disclosure, there are some aspects of my testimony book that are pretty raw. So
be prepared. It's not one to hand to your children.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yep.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the side note. And it is real. I appreciate you sharing your story and turning it into print so it can be shared with more people. But Mark Krancer, thank you so much. All right, Holy Business, we'll see you next week.